Rowan here today with an interview with the legendary Mario O'Brien of Rise Up Ultimate. Not only is he a champion on the national and world stage, player of the year, but he was the first and major pioneer into ultimate education. But before we talk the nitty gritty coaching of modern ultimate, let's hear about the origin of the ultimate educational platform that he started over 10 years ago.
The whole environment was different back then. I'd say that the main difference between then and now was this was like the pre-internet video era. We were still on Facebook. Facebook didn't have a lot of video. There was no Instagram, so it was having video on the internet that people could get access to, created by entrepreneurs who didn't know what they were doing. That was like a new era, and it's very prevalent now. So that was the context, and really it just started because I found this love and passion for wanting to coach. I found myself gravitating to doing as much ultimate as I could. There's a little group of people um, in Seattle who wanted to, it started off with an email thread that was videotaped practices.
Huh.
And from there it was a collaboration between Ben Wiggins, Elliot Trotter, Andrew Loveseth at the time. And I just kind of was like raising my hand like, hey, I could get involved in this and I could take the lead. And it didn't start out as a business idea. It was just we want to share. We're all very teacher coach oriented people,
Sure.
and we had done some coaching internationally, and we were like, this is so awesome. People all over the world, they want to get better. They don't have the resources in their community, and it just kind of started there with our
Yeah.
desire to share what we knew.
As you might know, that email originated and materialized into Rise Up Ultimate.
I think I had a sense that if we made something that was helpful to one group of people, it was probably going to be helpful to people that we hadn't even thought about. And so we had a sense that it was going to, travel well or be useful to people. I don't think I had a concept of like how it would affect my life and that I would start a business and then do only ultimate frisbee stuff for 5 years. Like I stopped doing my teaching job and I went all in on frisbee coaching stuff, rise up and coaching locally. Um, so I had no idea. That was not the plan. We had visions of just helping people and maybe like doing something useful and making it worth their time and our time. Um, but it took me around the world. I met lots of people, and like ultimately it something that I really relate to you about and that I'm like so excited for you about is that it enabled me to like go all in on frisbee and be the player that I wanted to be while also developing my brain as a player and a coach, which then helped my playing. But I just got,
Yeah.
there's the
Yeah.
10,000 hours rule or whatever. It's like I got to put
Just
in my
did it.
10,000 hours.
I asked him what that meant to him and the ultimate community at large.
It's like interesting story and scenario for me because I actually think that I developed my coaching prowess before my playing prowess. Like Rise Up, in my opinion, when it started, like Rise Up was bigger than me as a player. It was after I did all the Rise Up stuff that I then actually like kind of peaked as a player. So the funny thing is I actually thought of myself as a really good coach before I thought of myself as a really
Huh.
good player. So it's a bit of a strange thing. Normally the path is like you play your career and then you become a coach. And for me, I was like, I'm a coach. I'm trying to be a pro coach while still
Yeah.
playing. And then I focused more on playing. And now I'm back to officially sitting just in the coach's chair.
The coach player coach arc was extra special because Mario won gold on Beach World's last cycle. I had to ask what it was like from flipping as a player to the coaching staff.
Just to like innovate and push myself, knowing that it was a totally new thing for me to be a
Right.
coach on a national team and have that role. And coming in, as the assistant coach and working with Brian, priority number one is like, hey, this is Brian, this is your team. I want to be your wingman. I want to support. I want to bring, my expertise or area or strengths, and I want to support and round out the coaching staff and leadership with you. And specifically, I know that I have experience and confidence in on the offensive side of the ball. And I was like,
Yeah,
look, I can take this on. I got some ideas of how I even want to step up my game and do some new stuff. And a lot of what we did as a team was, kind of basic offensive structure stuff in terms of like how we rolled out the training camps and the concepts that we used. But the thing that I was really excited to innovate on was like the play calling stuff because I had never I had never seen anyone do it like I've done it, or like I've never seen anyone do it like I had this vision for doing it.
sure.
I knew that I could provide some benefit to the team, and also I was like, I need to evolve as a coach. I'm not just gonna come back here and be on my same bullshit. I gotta be on my
Yeah.
bullshit plus evolve myself.
When I put my vlog out about the tournament, one of the things a lot of players and coaches messaged me about was Mario's pull play design. With pull play stoppers and junk defenses, pull plays are currently at a sticky, messy situation in Elite Ultimate, yet Mario was able to make several breakthroughs.
So yeah, I have the actual physical playbook that we used at Worlds. Like this is it, and you can see that each page has a different visual, and you know, this was what I used. You can actually, I was really nervous actually to like put myself on film doing this with the team, and
Sure.
it ended up being okay because I watched the
Yeah.
film and like, okay, like can the other team watch the stream and see what plays I'm
Zoom in.
calling and zoom in? And
Yeah.
I was like,
Well,
okay,
well,
it's
you got
fine.
the counter. We talked about counters in text. If they see the little
Let's go.
butterfly, then you have the check back. So you got all the bases covered, but we'll get there in a second. That led into a good question. Should the players or the coaches call the plays? I asked them if you could share a little bit about that concept.
Um when I thought of doing this, I was like, what's my goal with this? It's I want clarity, I want it to be concise, but I also just want to reduce, like you said, the mental bandwidth for everyone involved, especially, considering like what was our other option? We could have a player do this stuff. We could have a player call the plays, and like that's a whole side of it, that like then
Sure.
that player has less energy to communicate with
Yeah.
their teammates on the sideline.
They're
And
off. They're off a point. Who's got the backup call? Who's third string caller? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you're right that I appreciate that is the effect that you said it had, because that was very intentional, along with it being concise and clear, but also just to like bring you that, when it's concise, when it's clear, when you don't have outside external thinking noise.
Yeah.
That's a context or an environment that you can create the flow and in the zone feeling that players want, and the confidence. So
Now that we've gone over some coaching theory, it's time for practicality. I asked Mario if he could break down any points on tape, and sure enough, he brought up some pull plays on film to break down.
this play that you're about to see is called catch, center, go. So we've got uh, our shape is a horizontal stack. Catch, center, go means Brett here is going to catch it, center it, and then he's going to go deep. So if this were a 5 out of 5 perfectly run play, we would throw it deep to Brett and he would score a goal. But the way that I measure success in plays is not just did we target the first thing and hit it and then get an easy goal. It's did the motion that the play created get us going in flow and allow us to play clean, spaced out offense according to what our plan is. So in this
Sure.
case, we don't end up throwing it deep to Brett, but Raekwon makes a read, takes the open space, and then we get into flow. So this is still a win, and this is part of the design of this play to have these multiple reads, even if the play doesn't go right.
Yep.
Okay, so Brett is here. He's going to go deep. Raekwon reads it, comes under, gets it to Tyler, and now we've got space and we're trying to get into flow. Okay, so right there is what I would call like that's the expiration of the pull play. And how I rate this is overall a win for us as a team because like I said, it got us going into flow. We didn't go backwards. Our spacing is still good. And now we're moving. So this is an example of you can run a play. It doesn't go perfectly as designed, but part of the secondary design is it got you into flow. So it's a win.
Yeah, and that's yeah, even like playing through the system, I felt there was just so little time where it was, hey, just and if it did have to go back to the pole catcher, we almost had like built-in floods or like weak side slashes to that area. So yeah, I think nowadays teams get a little too carried away with being like super cute on the play and it has to work. But I think we talked about it 10 minutes ago, like pull play stoppers and junk is here. Yeah, did you kind of build the playbook like knowing that hey there's going to be handler sags here, there's going to be a little help off the back, or was it just like we're playing our game and they're going to have to stop it?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of how you build both an individual play and you build the playbook as a
Yeah,
whole. I think any great individual play keeps in mind what a good defense is most likely to do against it. And it definitely accommodates for the most basic things. Most basic thing every pull play should accommodate for is handler seg. It's very common for the nearest handler defender to get in the lane and try to clog that space up so that the throw can't go there. And I think all good pull plays preemptively put the off handler in a spot where it's not going to gunk up what you're trying to do. So I got a
yeah, no, I
good
was
example of
yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah. Or no, yeah, yeah. What do you think?
yeah, like I was that guy a lot and I was curious, like I ended up getting like wider and wider as the tournament went on, where it's like almost kind of awkward, but it also like really helped because I was able to turn the corner. Was that like preemptively in place? Did you see a couple of games? Like, where does the coaching balance of this is our system, this is our plays versus, oh, like Rowan actually should be a little wider after he catches the pull? Like,
So let's just talk about this play, how it was designed, and all of the reads, and then what actually happened. So this was a side stack play. We called this one side stack isolation deep, which means we're going to isolate someone coming out of the stack, and we're mandatory sending them deep. So that person who it's supposed to be isolated for is Yacht, and then we put Raekwon here at the back of the stack. We put him in a spot that I call the trigger, and we actually put him deeper than Yant because we want his defender thinking about helping. Because a lot of times, the last back will help deep, and he's the trigger because if he sees that help, that triggers him that he needs to come underneath. Okay, so that's what's ideally best case, 5 out of 5 perfect is we throw it deep to Yacht. Also good. That guy helps, and Johnny hits Raekwon coming under. Okay, that's like best case, but we get the third option, and what you're going to see here is you're going to see this guy handler sag. You're going to see you out here doing what we talked about, which is getting wide and positive of the line of scrimmage, and then we get into flow off of these secondary reads. So let's take a look at that, and
sure.
then I'll talk about why we put you wide.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so Johnny's walking up. He's seeing the handler sag, yacht deep. He chooses to hit you underneath. Okay, so that's how it went. So I think what's actually interesting about this is actually if you even watch this and let's say Johnny doesn't hit you, if he waits another beat, he actually has Raekwon coming underneath. So just watch the cutter space.
Sure, sure.
And Raekwon actually
Yeah,
had the underneath space if he would have waited, but he didn't, which is
yeah,
fine. And so okay, let's talk about you in this spot. So the conventional wisdom I find in Ultimate is that we don't want to be trapped on the sideline. That's like conventional wisdom. But in our context and with our team, I thought, you know what? I trust our players on the sideline. And I especially trust our players if they are catching it with momentum. It's basically like power position. So I think it's actually an advantage for us to be catching it with forward momentum and a defender not close and having to close back in.
yeah,
Um, so it makes this defender choose like, okay, well, am I committed to stopping the pull play? If so, I'm giving up power position going up here into this wide space. And I like that. I actually learned from you all this idea of calling it turning the corner. I love that. I'm going to use
sure.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
forever now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was intentional. I was very intentional at the beginning of training camps when we were learning the pull plays. This is not I don't want you back here because that actually makes it easy for the guy to poach and we don't get a good advantage. I want you even and wide so that the defender, if we do throw it there, it's taken him a while to get there. And that means you, as one of the best throwers on the team, now has time and space.
Speaking of a deep bag of plays, I asked him how many plays is enough and what's too much.
One common question when it comes to your playbook is like, how deep is our bag? How many plays are in it? And I like to always have a couple plays that look like each other that actually, you run one of them early in the game so that the other team has seen it and they're like, oh, I know that play. And then later in the game, you run a version of that play that is actually a counter to that play where they think, oh, I've seen this before. It's like we change something up and we catch them off guard and something easy happens for us. So that happened in semifinals for us. We came out in a vert stack, and early in the game, early in the tournament, we ran a play called Pokemon. Big Pokemon theme on our team, which
It
is
was.
so fun.
It worked.
So it worked. Oh man, it was so fun. But anyways, so that was a coaching thing that I did too. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take something from the team theme, and I'm gonna put it into the playbook just to
Yeah.
tie it all
Yeah,
together.
exactly.
Just like
Small,
you,
small, small things.
you can
Yeah.
name plays, you can
Reinforcement.
name plays whatever you want. Just reinforce the team culture, whatever. It's fun. Anyways, so we had a part of our playbook that was called Pokemon, and then we had a play called Pokemon Go, and then we had a play called Pokemon Go Under, and those were all complements and counters to each other. Okay, so the Pokemon play is vert stack, front of the stack, person cuts, break side, and we're just supposed to hit them. So that's Pokemon. What we're going to show here is Pokemon Go. So at this point in the game, at this point in the tournament, they've already seen Pokemon. We've already run it against them. And now we're later in the game, later in the tournament. So now we're running Pokemon Go. So Pokemon Go starts the same as Pokemon. You're gonna see Raekwon go break side, and then he's gonna take off deep. And what we're hoping is that his defender thinks it's Pokemon, so he bites a little bit under, and that opens up the deep space for Raekwon. In this case, it goes well and it plays out just how we want. So he goes break side. Now he's going deep. Boom. And there's a really subtle thing that we also talked about that someone else in the play does really well. Uh, they're off screen right now, but this is Yacht. Yacht is the last in the stack. So Yacht was taught to engage his defender so that the defender wasn't thinking about helping. So you'll see that as Raekwon does this, you're going to see Yacht coming in on the open side. Okay, so you're going to see that as Raekwon makes his initial cut to the break side, Yacht is actually engaging his defender, and he makes a cut, which keeps that defender out of the deep space. And so the reason that Raekwon is so open is because there's no deep help. And so let's watch it again, watching that back of the stack. So here we got Yacht engaging over here,
Yeah.
no deep help. And that was part of it. So that's like another level to the play design is there's the initial action that you're scripting. So in this case, it was a counterplay to one of our previous plays. But then there's nuance to what you're doing with the other players on the field to help the play work. And in that case, we coached the players who were in the back of the stack to keep their players engaged and make a read based on what's happening so that the play could work. So
After the play breakdowns, I couldn't let Rio go just yet. I had to ask him what the next big thing in coaching was, or ultimate in general. Here's his answer, and stay tuned. We're hoping to collab more in the future, so subscribe here, and you'll hear a little bit more of the next big thing. Here's Rio.
in terms of like how I see the game, this is not maybe an evolution for everyone, but for the game itself, but I have an evolution of like how I conceptualize parts of the game. And like I think it's like the, in American football, there's the line of scrimmage idea and controlling the line of scrimmage. And the team that dominates the line of scrimmage, like typically has an effect on has the advantage. And I think that,
Yeah.
when I think about Ultimate, I think you can think about it the same way. It's like who is winning the line of scrimmage and what does winning the line of scrimmage mean? Like to me, if your offensive system, if you're consistently going horizontally or a little bit forward as a handler group, you're winning the line of scrimmage. And if you're
Yeah.
going backwards or getting disconnected, the defense is winning the line of scrimmage. So just even building systems around like, okay, we're actually just trying to win the line of scrimmage rather than just like get resets. We want to win the line of scrimmage as a whole. I think I'm trying to like rethink about
Sure.
what effect winning the line of scrimmage, just that has on putter
Yeah.
flow,
Like
you know?